Welcome to the panel, How to Break into Creative Tech Industries and Stay Competitive. Our primary focus today is going to be on the sports entertainment industry and creative industries and the technological tools needed to build a career in these fields. Thank you, first of all, to Jay Tucker from the Anderson School of Business for providing the opportunity for us to have this panel. I'm Maya Beasley. I am the co-founder of the T10 Group, which is a diversity consulting firm, and I am also a research professor at the University of Maryland. I am lucky enough today to be joined by Mer Walker, Andrea Berry, and Ted Milner. In just a minute, I will let each of them introduce themselves, and then we'll have about a 20-minute conversation among our panelists. We will follow that up then by opening it up to audience questions. Please feel free to send your questions in as they come to you, and once we open it up to the full discussion, we will get to them. So let's start with some quick introductions. Perhaps Mer could start.
Hi everyone, my name is Mer Walker. I'm co-founder and chief design officer of Valence Community, a professional network and career navigation platform. I got my first start in the entertainment industry by working as an intern in the set design and production design arena. And it really was so formative into the career path that I've been able to enjoy, working across several different technology and media opportunities. And from the worlds of interactive advertising to innovation in the enterprise space, I've been fortunate enough to be able to manage and mentor quite a large array of people that I really am still close to this day, and look forward to talking with you about what you can do with your careers.
And Andrea?
Good morning, everyone. I'm Andrea Berry. I'm the Senior Vice President of Broadcast TV and Film at the Production Resource Group. We are a group that provides technology solutions for all genres of entertainment, including live television, scripted and unscripted programming. I actually started my broadcast career as well as an intern. I was a computer science and engineering student at the Illinois Institute of Technology in Chicago, and I started at the O&O station of NBC in Chicago and worked throughout my collegiate career, and then ended up at CBS in New York. I have had the opportunity of working on very large shows and managing large crews. I was a technical producer, but I was also the senior vice president for Fox Sports and Fox Sportsnet's field operations. So I've been a part of many launches of channels, many launches of leagues, as well as live production broadcasts. My career has expanded many years for my whole adult life, and presently I'm into, just as Lamar said, mentoring, managing, and coaching people on how they can have very fruitful careers like myself in the entertainment industry.
Fantastic. And last but not least, Ted?
Hello, everyone. Thank you for having me. My name is Ted Milner. I'm president of Executive Temps. Executive Temps is an entertainment employment agency. And what we do is we service networks in the studios and some production companies. Primarily, we place admin support and executives within the industry. We started out, when we first started out, NBC was our first account, and then we grew it from there. The executive vice president of NBC is a former employee that we place. The vice president, Jesse Collins Entertainment, we place. The vice president of Cartoon Network, the director of business affairs at HBO. So basically, in a nutshell, what we do is we launch people's careers. We provide them opportunities that want to work behind the scenes and control the content of what the world sees on TV.
Fantastic. Well, I'm guessing you're going to get a lot of contacts, Ted. So let's start it out with a question. Andrea, you had started talking a little bit about your career, but could you maybe tell us a bit more about how you were able to land your first job in the entertainment industry?
It was actually by accident. I knew going in the engineering curriculum that I didn't want to be the traditional engineer because I had that left brain, right brain thing going on where I was an artist as well as a technologist. And I started with my own collegiate radio station, and I was able to have my own show. And then NBC, under the guise of affirmative action back then, which we called diversity, equity, and inclusion these days, were recruiting minority students to become vacation relief technicians and members of the NABIT union. And so we were literally trained for 2 or 3 weeks at the station to be camera people, graphics operators, lighting folks and everything. And within 2 or 3 weeks, we were on the air doing live news and talk about, pushing us into the fire. And that ignited my love for the entertainment industry because I developed this high for live television. My collegiate experience allowed me to have 3 years of experience before I even graduated from college. So I was recruited by CBS. So I really fell into it just because I needed an internship. I needed to pay my tuition, and that was one of the jobs that I had interviewed for, and didn't know that this was kind of, God's way of saying this is what you're supposed to do. I was able to stay relevant, of course, because of the years in the business, but I also continued to learn, and I had great people training me constantly on what to do and what not to do. And I made the shift into management after I graduated from college because I realized that I wanted to do more. I wanted to be able to understand the big picture of the industry in general. And so I chose management over technical management, over actually being a button pusher and pushing buttons and operating equipment. So there's different avenues that we can take in order to develop longevity in the business.
I'm curious, how did you find those, I guess I would call them mentors, along the way?
Being the sole Black person and the sole woman in a lot of very male-dominated situations, I just started developing friendships, and I wasn't afraid to ask questions. I think we have to be confident enough in ourselves to ask questions and to really develop relationships with the people that you're working with, no matter what they do. You have to respect everybody's position. The entertainment industry is all about team building and team working. We cannot do a show alone. And so I would actually sit next to the audio guy and ask him, what are you doing? What do all those buttons mean? What are you doing? And they would actually sit there and explain it to me because I came off as if I wanted to learn. And I think that if you genuinely show in a humble way that you want to learn, people will give you information. The last thing you want to do is walk into a situation and say, I'm better than you, I know more than you. And that doesn't allow for a mentor to want to give you information and share information and teach you. So I would recommend that people have a humble attitude, but a confident attitude on how they want to learn in the industry. And the mentors that I was able to, they were all white males, literally. I was lucky enough later in my mid-management career to have Jonathan Rogers at the time, who ran CBS stations, to be one of my mentors. He guided me on a more upward track for management. But when I first started, it was all white males who mentored me. And I think it was because I was open to learning, they were open to teaching, and we developed relationships to the point where I still am friends with these older guys. And they were pioneers in television. So it was, I would recommend that you just stand out and you don't be afraid to ask questions and don't be afraid to learn.
Excellent. Excellent. And Lamar, I'll ask you the same question in terms of getting that first position. How did you wind up in the entertainment industry, and how did you manage to succeed in the beginning?
Yeah, it was kind of a bit of fate, I think, in terms of I was at USC doing an architecture undergrad program, and my sophomore year, my work study job was actually at the School of Theater, and my roommate was also in the School of Theater and mentioned, hey, you should potentially look at the set design stuff that we're doing as something that might be of interest to you. And I did. And later that summer, or as the summer started, I really needed a job. And so I got a hold of a 411 book at the time and called and called and called for about 3 weeks before anybody would actually pick up and talk to me. And when they did, I ended up getting into a couple of interviews. And what was fun about the interviews is actually show work. I could show the portfolio of projects that have been done over the last 2 years, and particularly around making models, which is something that those folks really needed, as well as the digital models, being able to kind of do 3D renderings and so forth. And so that first interview then led to a late night call on a Friday night at 10 p.m. And, it was like, do you want to work? Come on over. And so a lot of what I did in that cycle was being fearless in terms of going in and working off hours or all nighters or whatever it took. But a lot of those projects were incredibly fun things like, music videos with Janet Jackson and all kinds of really notable people. And what was also fascinating was the types of folks that I was meeting who, as Andrea was mentioning, if you kind of open up your curiosity lens and you talk to people that are around you in those contexts, they are so happy to show you their craft and to pass it on to you to a certain degree if you're really kind of open to it. And I just encourage everyone to really do that as much as you can, soak it all in, because at some point it's going to add up to a wonderful portfolio of capabilities. So as I left that internship and started to kind of continue to work in architecture, it kind of melded the two worlds of the story world of building as well as the actual buildings. And so a lot of what I did there informs what I'm doing today in terms of the digital toolkits and having the meta mindset around learning those craft elements without drilling too deeply on a specific one. I can help people as well as generate things on my own. And I would say in terms of mentors, it was really important. The first gig that I got was someone that I connected, frankly, on the world of sports. He was someone who had, gotten a PhD in fine art and but was really into both football and basketball, things that were near and dear to my heart. And we struck up a friendship around that, and we're still friends to this day. So I just encourage people to kind of find that chemistry fit, which is kind of a great theme that we're actually bringing to life with Valence, of finding those chemical bonds that work with people when you encounter them.
Yeah, one of the things I'd like to mention, Maya, is that working initially in sports and news allows for you to really learn about the television industry. You can learn multiple skill sets on the technology side as well as the creative side, because there's so much content that has to be attended to, that there's a plethora of things that you can do in the entertainment industry under the guise of sports and news, because they're always happening, except for, it's COVID year, but they're always happening. And I think that and also the trends start, the technology trends and the new ways of doing things in the entertainment business always start in sports and always start in news. So those are good ways if people are trying to figure out how to get their foot in the door and their feet wet on learning the television industry in general.
So to start in sports, if at all possible?
Sports or news. Yeah, doesn't matter how big the station is or whatever. You start in sports and news. And Lamar, you're shaking your head. Small stations or sports environment are key. And now that we have all these OTT platforms, that really allows for you to be more independent on how you're creating content and using that technology to create your own content.
Okay. And so just, going off of this, Ted, when these students are going out for their interviews, what can they do to make sure that they're getting hired in sports or news or whatever part of entertainment they're interested in?
That's a great question. I think that's key to people actually launching their career. I mean, we can sit and talk to them all day about the opportunities that exist within entertainment, um, what their passion job looks like, what they do, but then they actually have the interview and they blow their interviews. Um, it's not that any in particular person is looking for you to interview a certain way, but they just want you to be kind. They want you to be grateful. They want you to be thankful. I've interviewed over 10,000 people. And so the biggest mistake that people make, I think, when they're interviewing is they interview for their future and not for the job they're being hired for. So I think it's very important that when you're sitting in the presence of someone that has the ability to hire you and they're telling you what the job looks like and what the job entails, don't talk to them in detail about your 10-year plan. No one's hiring you to be president today. You may be president in 5, 7 years, but today I just need you to answer the phone. I need you to make copies. And so people have a tendency to think that someone's looking to discover them. And it's just such a myth. And the good interviewers will encourage you on that path. For example, if you're interviewing in marketing as an assistant in marketing, but your real passion is to be a writer, and then the interviewer talks to you and says, so what's your passion? What do you really want to do? Well, I really love to write. Really? Well, what have you written? Well, I've written 2 scripts. Well, tell me about them. Now, they're not asking you that question because they're going to help you, get those scripts on air. They're asking you those questions so they can eliminate you from the position. And if your goals don't align with the job that you're being interviewed for, they're not going to hire you. And then they turn around, they'll call me and say, Ted, lovely person, but they really want to write. And I don't think this is the job for them. But the reality is when they get the job in marketing, the development department is right across the hall and they're going to build relationships and that will guide them to the path that they want to be on. So I think sometimes this current generation that's entering the workplace is so centered focus. It's all about them. What I want to do, what my goal is, I'm going to do me. I'm going to be myself, authentic self. I'm going to do me. And people are like, I'm hiring you to do me. I'm hiring you to do what I need you to do. And so I think that's a mistake that a lot of people make when they're interviewing. They interview for the future, not for their job.
Do you think there's a way to make sure that people can convey their interest in the job that they're going out for? As you know, I understand what you're saying in terms of not talking about your 10-year goal or what you want your career to look like, but I presume employers want to know that you're excited about the job at hand, and what's a way to convey that?
Most employers are going to tell you about the job, and usually you're interviewing it because you're the one who submitted the resume. So why are you applying for positions that you're not interested in?
Mm-hmm.
So obviously you're interested to a degree. It's not a sin to talk about your future aspirations 5 or 10 years out. You just don't spend a lot of time there. And it's in the someday world. Someday I would love to. Someday I really would like to. But you got to keep in mind that hiring is a very selfish thing. Employers are hiring for their need and their need only. It's all about them. And so whatever that job entails that they're hiring for, you have to have a conversation about that job. But at the same time, you can't be so gullible that even if it is your life job in writing and you're going to be a writer's assistant, you got to pull back a little bit, show some gratitude, but not so much that this person's going to be a stalker, So you listen to what people are saying, and if you listen during interviews, they will tell you what they want to hear. And I think that most people, when they're interviewing, feel that they have to sell them. And if you're in the presence of that person, they're already convinced that you could do the job. If they didn't think you could do the job, they wouldn't be interviewing you. So let's just have a conversation about what our expectations are and about your goals and see if they align together. And then after that, it's all personality and who really fits.
I know at interviews, interviewers frequently will allow the interviewees to ask questions at some point. How important is that? Should people be prepared with questions in advance?
They can, but you don't want to ask them questions that they can't answer, because they're not going to leave and say, that person asked me some really great questions that I couldn't answer. They're going to feel inadequate. If they have to say, I don't know. And if they feel inadequate about the questions, they're going to feel inadequate about you. They're not going to leave that interview with a good experience. It's not necessary that you drill them with questions. But if you do, I think the best questions are questions that they can answer. And then you don't add to the questions. And then you don't tell them your experience with a similar question. You just let them talk. If the interviewer spends 70% of the time talking, you had a great interview. So you let them run with it. But you could prepare some questions, but not so much that they don't know the answers.
Does anyone else have any recommendations?
Yeah, I'd like to chime in actually. There's actually it's an ancient book that I discovered actually after I got my internship. But Dale Carnegie, How to Win Friends and Influence People. And that book, I actually got it on an audio tape, and I was listening to it as I was driving my little Honda Civic back and forth. And the stories and the positioning around how to talk to people, how to let, most importantly, them talk to you is so critical in today's world. And it's eternal, actually. But one of the things that came up was after you've gotten the actual position and you're in and you're talking with people, you can then kind of expand the relationship. But I think particularly for people going into kind of hybrid arenas where there's some tech kind of emergent aspects of it, you do want to be able to ask some questions that prompt thoughts about what could happen next potentially with the platform in a way that, again, like Ted's saying, doesn't make them feel like you don't value what they've been doing or what they've created, because it's obviously working if you're interviewing there, but you also can show how you could potentially help them contribute to its future. I think that's really powerful. And in particular, when I was working in the innovation space with the enterprise companies, how we would actually work with the interview process with ethnographic interviews with people to find out what were their unmet needs. There's an art and a science to that I think is really powerful for people to understand, but you want to be cautious with that going on the first wave of your interaction with someone and asking questions that are not well timed.
Yeah, that's a good point too, Lamar. And I think that you should have prior research. Do your own research about the company that you're interviewing with. Don't be totally ignorant of what they've done. I've had young people come to me and not have any idea what a company like Fox does, And so the other thing, in production, we tend to work long hours. And most production people are extremely passionate about what they do for a living in the entertainment space. And the last thing you want to ask are simple questions. And Ted, you may agree with me. I was taken aback when someone asked me, what are the hours of the job? Because we don't function like that. We're not an 8-hour, 9-to-5 environment. And when someone asks me that, that tells me that I may not be able to rely on them on a Saturday morning when I'm in a crisis doing a live show. I need to know that that person is available to me. So it is about the company and what their needs are when they're trying to hire you, and they are building teams and they want to know that you're a team player. So the more you can exhibit that, the better, but never ask what are the hours, what are my days off going to be, all those simple mundane things, because you're not walking in there to do a punch clock type of job. So I just wanted to make that clear because I've seen it so many times in the interview space with young people.
That makes a lot of sense. I'm curious, Andrea, as a woman, and particularly as a woman of color, how have you managed to navigate a male-dominated field over the years?
I probably ignored more things than I should have. I realized early on that I had to compete with myself. Competing with other people was not my way of reaching success. I couldn't look at others and envy or, I admired what some of my peers did, of course, but I could not do that. So every time I reached a particular goal, I would continue on to make another goal and keep benchmarking myself. And I knew under their breath, especially, back when I started, I knew under their breath, like, oh, she's the affirmative action kid, or she's, someone called me a prodigy one time when I was managing a large crew. They say I have a tech producer who's a prodigy. In other words, I was unusual. And so that I was treated not as the Black person, but an unusual Black person. And there's things that you have to develop a toughness so that things roll off of your back. And you have to still be unapologetically who you are and be authentic as to who you are. But I think as a woman, I would at times have to challenge folks. I remember when I was trying to get awarded to be the tech producer for the figure skating, live figure skating venue at the Olympics in the Winter Olympics in Norway many, many years ago. And they had assigned a guy. I knew that he didn't want to do the job. I went to my boss and said, can I do it? Can I be assigned to that? And he told me no. And I asked him why. And I asked him not only why, but what do I need to do so that I can do that job? And so you have to be, and it wasn't arrogant, it wasn't malicious or anything like that. I just simply wanted to know, what do I have to do? And so many, many times throughout my career, I decided that I really couldn't take no for an answer if I knew that I was inherently prepared to do the job and do it well. So being a woman, it is lonely. Being the sole Black person, it is lonely. You have to carry yourself almost in a different fashion than you do at home, right? We have to be on guard, and you have to be still to this day, and I believe this, you still have to be more prepared and more, it's almost like a chess game. You have to be very strategic with yourself and how you approach things. And I made it a point to make sure that people respected me. Whether they liked me or not, the respect was a very important thing to me. So all the women out there, make sure that you carry yourself with full respect and full confidence of who you are. You don't have to be arrogant, but you can be very confident, and don't always take no for an answer. Keep learning and keep making sure that you are prepared for any opportunity that comes your way. And it may get lonely out there. You just have to develop that tough skin and make sure that your family is supportive of you. You have a good circle of friends like I did. I lived in New York City at the time. So you just have to make sure that you look for that balance so that you don't crack up. I would recommend that you figure out things that for your own wellness, because you're going to come across racism, you're going to come across sexism, and that's the reality of it all. It's not something you can sweep under the counter.
Do either of the two of you gentlemen have any suggestions in terms of navigating a career where you are generally underrepresented and more marginalized?
I'll chime in. For me, in the working across creative and tech experiences, it's always been pretty much the same as Andrea is describing. Obviously, the gender being the different factor here, but the fact that I've been, in many cases, the singular voice coming from my background, yet playing the game, so to speak, from the perspective of I'm competing with myself of how good can I be in this scenario, how much can I do for others that don't necessarily look like me to actually really get us to where we can be, and prove to myself has really kind of been my focus. But that is a very lonely kind of path, but it's okay in my mind in terms of when we think about crafts, you're going to be alone. You're doing the work, right. And the work requires focus and sometimes solitude. You're not going to be able to talk on the phone sometimes with ones you love. You have to find the ways to balance your life out. But there's going to be times when you are going to be heads down. You're going to be getting so much stuff done, and you're going to be proud of yourself after you've gotten it done. And the fact that you've got a lot of friction, surrounding that process, that's part of being on this kind of human plane, I think, frankly. We have some unique ones that we deal with being black or being a person of color, for sure. No doubt about that whatsoever. But it's not something that's insurmountable. And we look throughout history to all the heroes and archetypes that are there for us to see. It can and it is happening. So whatever that is that you're doing, do it to the best of your ability at all times, and you're gonna be really happy with the result. And a lot of the chaos that's around us, you will find ways to overcome it.
And doing the best job that you can do is the key, because when people recognize your talent, they will come to you for more work and more camaraderie, and also be willing to help everyone. I've shepherded all kinds of people, mentored all kinds of people, and that puts you in a different category. I've also made sure that, other women and other people of color behind me have been hired or trained or mentored, but you have to make sure that you're open to helping anyone. And I think that's one of the things that I did throughout my career. To me, if someone is eager to learn and eager to do a good job, I will help them. But you're not going to be part of the boys club. Don't get it twisted. Even the men on this panel know that there's a boys club, and they will not be in a part of that either. It's not going to happen.
And I want to piggyback on that. Yeah, I just want to piggyback because that was actually a source of pride for me, was to create another club that actually was different on purpose and a bit of a radical kind of anomaly in many contexts, and to wear that as a source of pride, right? Hey, we're innovating here. We're taking this thing in a different direction. The old boy is over there, and if they want to come and evolve, we're here. So if they don't, it's okay. But there's plenty of lanes to be, frankly, blazed or joined in this world. So that's the way my mind kind of works around it all.
Yeah, many years ago, I was doing the WNBA championships, and I was the lead tech producer. And the only guy in the truck was the producer. We had a female director, female AD, female graphics operators. We had female camera people, to the point where the guys were like, well, I want to come on that crew. You guys are cool. You guys are, so you can use your managerial ability once you guys get further in your career to create an environment, like Lamar says, that's fun and creative, with people who are going to master their craft and be able to pull off a great production. So we would have fun doing that, to the point people are still talking about how I would put together good groups of women, good groups of people of color, handpicking them because they were good. And it is possible. It's not often, but it is possible to do it. And so we would like to see where we have more diverse crews and more people who are able to master those crafts and be able to perform at a high level.
Thank you. Before we turn it over to the audience for discussion, I'm wondering from Ted, do you have any suggestions in terms of how people can balance asserting that they are skilled and strong with also maintaining some sense of humility?
I think people have to know who they are and be proud of who they are. For me, when I launched Executive Temps, I entered into a space I really knew nothing about. And my wife was a former assistant to the chairman of NBC and Paramount Pictures, and she was the one who actually creatively came up with the concept of Executive Temps, and I was playing baseball, and that's what I did professionally for a while. So when I entered this space, it was a new space for me. And so I was always trying to be what I felt was best, and to make sure other people were happy with what we were delivering. And then I started to realize that people are just going to complain because they're just going to complain because that's what they do. They complain. And so when I learned to let people be who they are, my life got a little easier. But one of the things that I found that were really important that I learned over years was the power of humility. And most people don't want to be humble because they see it as a sign of weakness. And they don't understand the power of humility. I mean, I can move and shape conversations and I can move people's relationships of how they're going to deal with me. I can control that just by demonstrating love and kindness. You know, when you talk about mentors, it's not that complicated to get mentors, but no one really wants to. And in 30 years, I've never had anyone come to me and say, Ted, I want to be a mentor. Can you bring some mentorees to me? That has never happened. Most people are too busy to mentor. But you know what? Most people will always mentor you, but you have to give to them. You know, so you just love people. So right now, you know, I can size someone up in 30 seconds if I want to employ them or not. Sometimes a minute. Now sometimes they get fooled, but not many. But give me 60 seconds, 30, 60 seconds with someone, pretty much can size them up. But what I really look for was absent in this generation. You guys are a different generation, and everything's given to you quickly. And so you can manifest dreams like immediately. It took us years to manifest dreams. And you guys can have it in 6 months, in 12 months. And because of that, you forget the process, you know. But in relationships, the process of love is time and kindness and humility and just being there for people. So I think when it comes to really understanding what an employer wants and fulfilling their needs, step outside of yourself, die to your passions, and listen to their needs. And people can't answer, and they don't answer things to really leverage a relationship because they're constantly thinking about, how do I manipulate this person, use them to get what I want? They never put their desire on the back burner and really engage with you without thinking how you're going to benefit them. They're always, how is this relationship going to benefit me? How about how do you benefit someone else's relationship? How about you just paint it forward because you can? So I have these hats and these T-shirts from the event that I did years ago. And so I took them under the freeway where all the homeless people were. Parked my car, walked on one side, gave them hats and T-shirts. On the other side, gave them hats and T-shirts. I've done that numerous times at different spots. Why? Because I can. Because I can. So when I'm engaging with people, when I'm engaging with professionals, I listen to their needs. When clients call me and they're frustrated with their personnel, I listen. And after I listen, they think I'm amazing, but all I did was listen to you. I didn't do anything else other than listen to you. And so I think if people humble themselves and step outside of not always focusing on what they want will come to them. Because the reality is the dreams and the passions that you want, someone's going to have to give it to you. And so someone's going to have to like you in order to create a path for you. But if you're always about yourself, no one's ever going to like you. They're going to say, you know, that person does great work, but, you know, and they'll often will take the person with less skill, who the person who really wants to be there and the person that will serve all the time. And I have people that come back to me again and again, year after year. I had this one woman come back to me. She probably was the most skilled person of 90% of the people I employ. And 15 years later, she's coming back to me again. As she's telling me and complaining in my office about how she's not landing the job that she wants, and this keeps happening to her. And I just don't understand. I mean, people, and they blame it on a variety of different reasons. And I said, I know what the problem is. And she kept on. I said, I know what the problem is. If you want to know, I'll tell you. Okay, Ted, tell me. I said, the problem's you. You're the problem. You don't, when it gets tough, you don't stay in it long enough. You bounce because they piss you off. So you're mad. So you leave. Mm-hmm. You don't humble yourself and listen to their complaints and see, can I fix this? Can I make the adjustment here? And so I said it kindly to her, but she never came back to me again. So, you know, just humble yourself, people. Humble yourselves.
Well, I really appreciate the message about humility and also about kindness, because I think these days we need that now more than ever. So with that said, I'd like to open it up to the group discussion. So I see we have quite a few questions and they're fantastic. Let's start with this one. So how would you best describe your experience in finding a mentor and how did they help your career?
Wow. The mentors that I've had were very organic. Um, as I think someone said, the mentor is not going to come to you. We don't go out and say, "Hey, I want to mentor people." You have to meet that mentor probably 70%, 80%. Um, Look and see someone who you admire, and you can approach them. Send them an email or um, hit them up on LinkedIn, or just if they're working with you side by side you, start asking them questions and let them know what you are aspiring to do. A lot of times sometimes you can only talk to a mentor once a week or twice a month or something, but always have bullet points ready as to what you want to talk to them about, because usually a mentor is very, very busy and they don't have a lot of time to sit with you. But I think that if you are very focused on what you want to talk to the mentor about and what you want to learn from that mentor, I think that they'll be more responsive to you. And I've had mentees actually chase me when I got too busy and say, "Hey, Miss Andrea, are you busy? Can I bring some coffee up to your office? I just want to talk to you." And sometimes they're a good break in the day for an upper manager or something like that. So I think the best thing that you can do is reach out to that person and let them know that you're interested, because most of the time, um, and do it with kindness, as Ted says, and be humble and listen to them, because they're going to learn from you as well. I've learned as much from my mentees that as much as they've learned from me. And so if you develop that learning relationship, learning back and forth from each other, I think is going to be very, very successful.
Yeah, I'll
Anyone
chime
else?
in. The the thing I'll say about it is start where you are. Meaning, if you're a student right now, chances are you're working with at least one professor or even a TA or someone that you really think knows and or is actually showing you that they are the master of a subject or a technology, whatever it might be. Really get to know that person because they'll spend a lot of time with you in ways that professionals might not have the time necessarily to dig deep to really help you along your way. So start with the professors in your network. I think they're huge opportunities for deeper relationships. I've done that myself with a lot of the former students that I had who ended up working with me. The second thing is you might find a fellow student who actually can be a mentor to a certain degree, a peer mentor relationship around certain things that they do extremely well. And you want to learn from them and you want to be able to give back to them in something that they don't do as well as you do. So those are two things that I find people often kind of skip across and want to go and find ways directly into the work world without making the most out of where they are right now and getting prepared for it. And then with regard to the work world, I think, again, finding ways that you're seeking out someone that has, a bandwidth opportunity to kind of welcome you into their world, but you're able to give to them as much as they're giving to you. And that manifests in how and when you kind of are asking them to interact with you. It manifests in how you actually kind of, do projects with them to show them that there's something manifesting from your relationship. I've got two mentees right now who are doing fantastic little side projects as we're kind of co-creating something together. That is huge as a benefit loop back to me in terms of what I feel like I'm actually helping them to grow into. So just throwing it out there that if you're able to kind of think of something that you want to do with this mentor, that's a way for them to be able to help you along your way. That'll be a great opportunity set for you and your mentor.
And if I can just give my own 2 cents here, I would also encourage students to not only look to people of color to find mentors, but to make sure that you're, availing yourselves of all the resources that are out there. You're there are, especially if you're in a university, you already know that there's not a huge number of faculty of color, and certainly, fewer still female faculty of color. And so if you're only looking for your same demographic group, you're really going to be quite limited. And you also have to remember that there's a whole bunch of people that are going to be looking to those same individuals to serve as mentors, because they have the same desire. But there are plenty of people from other demographic groups that can and will help you, and should. Okay, so next question. So here's a great one. When applying for an entry-level internship or job that requires a reel or portfolio, what is the expected quality of work for a student or a recent graduate who doesn't really have a whole lot of experience?
Great question. I'll take this one. As outstanding as possible and as intriguing as possible are the two categories that I would frame it with. Meaning, if you're doing, let's say, animation, and your career path and your educational path to date has opened you up to a certain amount of digital tools as well as analog tools, and you've got three really outstanding, in your mind, pieces of work to show, maybe at 30 seconds, 60 seconds, whatever it might be, but there's a sense of story. And that's where the intriguing aspect comes to play, that we can tell that you can tell a story, which is the fundamental principle across all these things that we do. That's going to really jump out from a lot of submissions that have zero story. They might even have far better craft, but we can decipher if someone actually can compel through storytelling. So that's the first layer. I think the second is how you actually compose that. Right? We've got such a wide array of tools to be able to put together your presentation, whether that's a website or it's you're posting it up on Vimeo, but you do a nice job of labeling it and making sure it's really clear and easy for people to get to without a whole lot of steps and obstacles. And I would say the third thing is being open to getting feedback, right? You want to make sure you're showing this to your mentors, again, some of which might be fellow students, but particularly your professors, about, okay, I want to send this out. What do you think about this? Is this coming across as best as it can? And doing something with that feedback. I can't tell you how many times I've given the feedback and I see the student just pummel forward and come back with the same issue that we tried to solve before. So those are my three offerings around that. I think Andrea will have some probably better takes on that.
No, absolutely. I agree with you 1,000%. The word extra comes to my head, where if you do something more than the status quo and it's extra, but I'm so glad that Lamar pointed out storytelling, because no matter what genre of entertainment you go into, we are here to tell stories. We are here to entertain people, to tell stories. And so the technology is just the execution of that idea, of that story. And even if you're not trying to be a creative person and you're just trying to do the technical stuff, you still have a knack. Some of the best storytellers are technologists to me. And I think that if you tell a great story, tell it short and sweet, and do something extra, something that is unusual that hiring manager is not going to expect. Because I've been blown away by some of the portfolios that I've seen, and it's because they did something so extraordinary that that I was not expecting. So I 1,000% agree with Umar on that one. And present it well. Do that typical cover letter and say, this is what I'm about to show you, or whatever. Just don't send them a video. You really have to prepare them for what they're about to click on, and make it a true presentation. You guys know how to do it. I just think it has to be outstanding and put that extra flair to it.
Fantastic. And let's see. Does anyone have any sense of what career pathways are emerging and what classes or certifications people should pursue to get ahead of the pack?
Well, I know that Lamar has a million. But the one thing that we're doing at my company now is virtual production is becoming really hot. When COVID hit, there was a demand for everywhere from corporations to the music industry, the television industry, to doing things in a remote manner. And the virtual productions were very much in demand, and they're not going to go away. They've been so successful. So any training that you can get, or you don't have to be an expert in it, but as a producer or director or even a technologist, you need to know the capabilities of extended reality, virtual reality, how that ties in live into broadcasting on OTT platforms, and the digital content that is required in that virtual production is very key. Learning about different types of platforms and software platforms and the capabilities of it. If you're not a computer scientist, you should still understand the capabilities of what this virtual world, because it's going to expand tremendously. And the content right now is being, from film to television, everything. There's pieces and aspects of those productions that are being done virtually right now, to the extent where they're running out of virtual production studios are popping up all over Los Angeles and all over the country. So that is the hottest new trend that we're seeing in my world right now.
Yeah, I totally agree. And actually, as we're doing this right now, this actual platform is a great example. And the people
That's
mastering what you're seeing of one of the biggest trends that we've seen just explode this last year. And it's not going to go, it's going to grow. And so, without revealing names, there's some masters behind the scenes that are making this all come together. And so, people, particularly in this new cohort, your ability to adapt to those tools, and there's so many of them that are emerging right now. There's a huge opportunity set around that. And one of the roles that's within that is, I'll call it being a producer and or an assistant to a producer, right? And this is where Ted's world, I think, is a phenomenal opportunity for you all to kind of understand. You ramp yourself into these opportunities by learning as you go. And often you'll actually be some of the hands that are on the controls, because this stuff is so fast moving and horizontal. But you want to work with people who have been doing the higher level version of it as they kind of come down to this virtual version. And you're going to find yourself in a great position. So I would say the live virtual production world and all the different career paths within the esports world is huge in terms of things that are blending that along with other things that go on. We're seeing a lot of requests, obviously, for the folks who understand front end and back end engineering, but particularly around people who are comfortable with social media, the amount of content production that's ramping up there, and all the ways that you already probably enjoy doing personally. But I think if you can kind of get some production muscle and insight and technique down, you can really be a full member of a cast and a crew. And I think the other two big categories that I'm going to cite are folks who can understand, what it means to actually be I'll call it a project manager, right? So there's coordination that's happening with live broadcasts, but then there's this full kind of array of different things that are going on throughout the digital and broadcast arenas, and being able to step in and say, hey, look, I can work with you guys to help make sure all these different trains arrive on time and deliver the goods, and we keep going from there. So I think those are the ones that I would say are really hot categories, and having those humility traits that we've talked about, having those craft traits, they all come together in that arena.
And the project management and the technical management is so underestimated, but without those people, doing the operational piece. And it hasn't changed in 30 years, guys. You always have to have a project management or a technical management representative on a remote or a show. And if you are not inclined to be in front of the camera or be the storyteller, those project management people are putting the crews together. They're putting the pieces together, and they're the people who understand the big picture of full production. So it's an incredible career, and you can migrate into all aspects of you are the liaison to the legal department, to the business department, to the producers, directors, to the technical people. So I would highly recommend project management in the event that you do not want to have your hands into the full creative aspects of a production.
And Ted, are you seeing any trends in terms of what employers are asking for skills?
I think they explained it very well. The production side really drives what happens on the network side. So they have to go out and they have to produce content, and then the broadcasters figure out how we're going to broadcast this. So they explained it really well.
Okay. I think we have time for one last question. And I think this is a great one. Again, can you speak on non-linear career pathways and lesser known entryways into the creative tech industry?
Well,
You go
I'll
first,
jump on
Lamar.
it, but I think it is possible if you have an anchor within yourself. Meaning, if you really are someone who loves, for instance, to dabble with code, you might not be a full-on engineer, but you can go in and not be afraid of looking at code. Or an equivalent is, hey, I'm a really great writer. I really feel like that's something that's just really natural to me. I would love to eventually be able to write a great screenplay, but guess what? There's only so many of them that are actually going to be made. However, I can take that skill set and adapt it in many different contexts. And I'm not going to be so rigid about it that I have to make a feature film. I can actually use that in working with gaming companies, or I can use that and work with celebrities to tell their story on social media. So if you have an anchor within yourself, that's the key to kind of having different stones that you can touch in a very fun way throughout your career path, in my belief.
Yeah, and I believe that there aren't enough technologists, and so if you do have technical skills, we need data analytics people. You need systems architecture people. You need those coders for gaming. You need people who understand transmission. You need those storytellers, but you also need legal people. You need people who are attorneys and accountants, and all of those folks are adaptable to the entertainment industry. So almost any major that you have, it can be applicable to being a part of the entertainment industry. We go to a sports medicine doctor, and he is very involved with the basketball teams. And when they're doing shows, he's right there on the sidelines. So that's it. Sports is entertainment. So there's all kinds of disciplines that you could have that will allow for you to be a part of this industry.
These are great answers. We have reached just about the top of the hour now, so I want to thank everyone for coming. Thank you so much to our three amazing panelists. I know I've learned a lot and have thoroughly enjoyed it. And I hope that the audience enjoys the rest of the conference. I understand that following this, there's going to be a space and time for audience members to continue the conversation if they'd like to. So I think you're supposed to stay tuned if that's the case. And perhaps some of the panelists may or may not stay on as well. But thank you all very, very much.